Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Golden Staff, an Alien Sci-Fi Harem Adventure by Michael Dalton. Narrated by Mason Lloyd. Chapter 1. Sunrises in Fangarad were a riot of violet, purple, and rose gold. Something in the atmosphere made them a lot more purple than the pink-orange sunrises I remembered from Earth. I wondered if I would ever see another Earth sunrise, or if I even wanted to. Though I'd been on Taitala only a few Earth months, I had been gone from Earth for more than 4 years. I knew from having connected to Taitala's crystal energy field that I was orbiting one of the suns in the binary system of Alpha Centauri, 4 light-years from Earth. So though I'd left behind a life and 2 young children, I was likely presumed dead by now, and my ex-wife had surely told my kids the truth about their parentage, that both had been fathered by her lover, now husband, Richard, with whom she'd had a years-long affair at work. Yet, in a few short months, I'd gained far more on Taitala than I'd left behind on Earth. About 36 wives, roughly 2/3 of whom were now pregnant, and about 10 of whom I would rather die than leave behind. There was a time when the prospect of having dozens of children on the way would have produced a complete freak-out, but many things had changed in my life. Taitala needed those children, needed a lot more of them, in fact, and it needed me to fix the circumstances that had created a dangerous gender imbalance, or the civilization here was likely to go extinct within 100 years. One of those wives appeared beside me, tucking herself under the arm I was resting on the glass wall of the 5th-floor balcony of my temple-like home. Ayarala rose up on her toes and kissed my cheek. "Whenever I cannot find you, Will, this is where I know to find you." I kissed her back, then took a sip of masset, the Taitalan drink I'd adopted as a coffee surrogate. It didn't exactly taste like coffee, but it had the same thickness and bitterness to it, plus some kind of caffeine-like side effect. I liked the view from up here. Fangarad, if you didn't look too closely, was an attractive city. The architecture was alien to my eye, this being an alien world, but it was still pleasing. It was an interesting mix of old and new in much the same way Paris and London were. But if you looked too closely, you realized that many of those attractive buildings were empty and abandoned. Fangarad, like Taitala, was dying. Ayarala took the mug from my hand and took a sip. She was my first Taitalan wife, and the most human in appearance, with her elfin features, pointed ears, and pale to translucent skin. She was Duenda, and had the purple eyes and metallic silver-gold hair that was common amongst her race. She'd come straight from bed, and wore only a sheer wrap that left very little of her nubile form to the imagination. "I didn't know you liked masset in the morning," I said. "It is time to let you know that your wives have developed a taste for it as you have." I laughed. I hadn't noticed. "That is because we always wait until you have had yours. Kissarat has threatened severe consequences for anyone who does not do so." Kissarat was my second wife, a talalong with emerald hair, serpentine eyes, and a long, snake-like tail. Though she was normally calm and intellectual, she was also the one who had turned me on to masset, and thus took a special interest, that need being satisfied. I laughed again at the thought of her enforcing her restrictions over the masset pot. "I'm happy to share." Down below us, what I'd come to think of as the Makalang festival was starting to wake up. There were now about 2,000 young Taitalan females camped out in front of my house, hoping to be picked as wives. Ayarala and Lorelat, an adorably beautiful Conelo rabbit girl, and one of my other wives, had picked about a dozen of them so far, good enough odds to keep the rest of them there. While they waited, they sat around in little groups, talking and playing music, or having impromptu games of sapabo, the most popular Taitalan sport, that seemed to be a cross between soccer and rugby. I scanned the girls below for the flash of amethyst I'd been hoping to see the past several days, but there was nothing. Ayarala caught my eye. "Are you looking for the girl with the purple hair?" she asked, smiling. "Amethyst," I said, "not purple." "We have looked, Will. So far, we have not seen her. You should just go claim her." "I want her to come here because she wants to be here, not because I go claim her." She pecked me on the cheek again. "Of course, my Sulagoi." Then she leaned against me, and I held her with one arm for a few moments. "I am still in complete shock about Naralora," she said. "Me too." "To bear a male child. I know you appreciate what this means." "Yes. You've all kept it a secret, as I asked." "Of course. If Sereniat were to learn of it, or one of the others." She shuddered. Sereniat was the clan leader of the Linyang, the cat-girl race my wife Naralora belonged to. If she were to find out about Naralora carrying a male child, there was good reason to think she would insist on taking her away from me. I'd already been through that once with Laura Lott and the leader of the Cunelo, and I didn't want a repeat. "I don't think they would do anything immediately," I said. "What we did in taking Lorelot back should be a clear message to all of them, and I meant it as one. But I'd rather not find out until I know more." "I wondered initially at your decision to take all the guards as wives," she said. "It makes sense now. I have enough challenges without worrying about their loyalty." "I am quite sure that will not be an issue anymore. You have given them something they never dreamed of having, a chance to mate and bear children. They would all die for you now." Ayarala was right, but the reason for my concern was the same reason all those girls were camped out in front of my house. Males were very rare on Taitala, and getting rarer. On average, these days, one birth in 10,000 was male. Their society had survived only by having the few males father as many children as possible. Typically, Taitalan females who wanted to bear children had to present themselves to a receptive male and hope to be chosen as wives, and then hope that male might get around to breeding with them sometime within the next 5 or 10 talons, a talon being a Taitalan year, and about twice as long as a year on Earth. This system worked when male births were more common because most of the breeding work fell to the younger males. Males lived at least twice as long as females, but the older ones usually had little interest in mating. With almost no young males left now, Taitalan society was starting to break down. So few children, male or female, were being born that their entire society was on the verge of extinction. Into this I had arrived, giving life to a myth known as the Makalang. The Makalang, or so the story went, was a tall, virile creature who took many Taitalan females as wives, mated with them regularly, and sired many children. So strong was the attraction of this legend that it supplied a substantial amount of plot material for the Taitalan equivalent of romance novels and dramas. Except the Makalang wasn't just a legend. I knew now that there had been other Makalangs before me, a lot of them. And it was obvious that the Makalang played a key role in the survival of Taitala. That was a problem, because everything I'd learned up to now suggested that I would be the last one. Some connection between Earth and Taitala that I didn't yet understand had drawn me here. It was something related to the preponderance of crystals on Taitala and how they interacted with a strange energy field that allowed me to do things like read my wives' emotions and communicate with them, even though I still didn't understand their spoken language. But that connection between our worlds was breaking down, and the energy field no longer appeared to have the strength to draw another Makalang here. That I had fathered a male child was a hopeful sign, but Taitala needed a lot more of them, and, more importantly, I had to find a way to arrest the historic decline in male vitality that had happened after every previous Makalang. I had some ideas. Whether they would go anywhere, I suppose we would see. Ayarala kissed me again. "I have things to do, and I need to get dressed, my beloved Sulagoi. Mirindra was looking for you as well. May I send her up here? Yes, of course. She went back into the glass-enclosed sunroom behind me and down the stairs. A few minutes later, my wife Sarai Mirindra appeared. The Sarai were something like fox-like human hybrids with furred ears and long, bushy tails. The hair on her head was ruby red, but it shifted to orange on her ears and down on her tail. I never got tired of looking at Mirindra, and I watched as she approached me slowly. All my wives were beautiful, but Mirindra was so pretty I often found myself getting lost in her red-brown eyes. She had a body straight out of a lingerie catalog, athletic and defined, yet curvy. She had the arms, shoulders, and abs of someone who had been training for combat her entire life, along with breasts that were as firm and silky smooth as the seats in an Italian sports car. They had no knowledge of gravity, and gave no indication they ever would. She wore a thin wrap, much like Ayarala's, so I had a perfect view of all her charms as she came up and leaned into my embrace. "Good morning." "It is a good morning, my Sulagoy." I was about to come down. She looked up at me. "It's fine. I wanted to talk to you alone for a bit." "Go for it." "I'm glad you asked me to come with you to Yama-Kana. Sometimes I felt like I have little use to you." I started in surprise. "What are you talking about?" "Ayarala runs the house. You go to Kesarat for her thoughts and advice. Naralora is your second, except when you meet with my grandmother. Eladra manages the wives, Mirasiri is your spy and connection to the Panakang. Even Loralat has a job. I seem to exist for you to stare at." I had to struggle against my reaction for a moment, and she smiled. "Don't be upset," she said. "I love how you look at me. I do. I just wish I had more to give you." I sighed. "Oh, you're right, and that is why I asked you. You have things to contribute, especially now that Naralora needs to keep a lower profile. I'm ready to stand beside you, Will. Wherever you go, my swords are yours." I kissed her deeply for a few seconds, feeling her body against mine, but then she gently pushed herself out of my grasp. "You should save your strength, Will. With you leaving again, Loralat has an even longer list today than usual." She hadn't been kidding. Between some new girls from the crowd, 2 Lin Yang wives who still hadn't conceived, and one of the guards, I was working my way through them as I'd promised, it was mid-afternoon before Loralat and I were done with the mating. I'd given her this job because she had a remarkable amount of sexual energy, even for a Cunelo, but it appeared that even she had her limits. "Is that a record?" I asked. "I am dead," she moaned. "I could sleep for a sampar." I rolled over and kissed her. "Just rest, bunny girl." She cuddled with me. "I will miss you, bunny daddy." "I doubt we'll be gone that long. This isn't like the trek up to see the Panakang." "Do you think the answers are there?" "There's something there, whatever it is. There's a lot I still need to learn, and it sounds like this Gates of the Golden Staff group knows some things." "I have never been to Yama-Kana, but the things I have heard are intriguing. It is not like Fangarad." "That seems pretty clear." I kissed Loralat again and got up to let her rest. Thanks to my ability to draw energy from my wife's orgasms, I wasn't as wiped out as she was, but I still wanted to take it easy the rest of the day. I found Naralora in the 4th-floor sitting room with Eladra, my other bunny girl, and one of the 6 who formed my inner circle, 1 wife from each clan. Mirasiri, my Panakang wife, was asleep and would be until dusk. The Panakang, who resembled earth bats to a certain extent, including the ability to fly, were largely nocturnal. My catgirl wife had been uncharacteristically subdued the past several days, ever since we'd discovered she was carrying a male child, subdued in much the same way as someone who just hit lottery and realizes that her life has been turned completely upside down. I wanted to be completely honest with her, so I shared everything I'd learned from Silas's journals and Professor Slorak, as well as my theories about Taitala's declining male vitality. So she was struggling with a mix of elation at bearing such an important child, combined with concern at what that child's future would be. When I sat down with them, Naralora crawled over, butting her head against my chest, and then curling up with me so I could scratch her ears. She lay there purring softly for several minutes as I felt her nerves calming. "Tell me again what you hope to find," she asked. "I'm convinced there's a connection between Silas's residency there and the gates of the Golden Staff." I repeated what I'd read in his journals, what this mysterious Talalong told him about his son. She loudly declared that I was bringing doom upon my line and upon this land. I can't escape this feeling that she knew what would happen with his son and grandson, and that she had some solution. Something that would prevent our son from becoming a revolting degenerate like Ishialik? Ishialik was her and Kisarat's first Suligoi. I'd killed him to take them away from him. That's the idea. If there's a way to do it, to preserve what I'm leaving behind here rather than letting it fade away again, I have to find it. "Why wouldn't they have used this solution on other males?" Eladra asked. "If it even works." "I have no idea. For all we know, they did. But it could also be that this solution, whatever it is, only works with the Makalang." Naralora took my hand and squeezed it. "I hope you find something, Will." "Me too, pussycat. Me too." When Mirasiri woke up as the sun began to set about an hour later, I brought her some masset. "A little elf told me you've taken to this stuff." She yawned and extended her wings, which meant folding out the odd wing bone under her forearms until the otherwise recessed flaps of skin in her armpits were at full stretch, roughly 5 feet in either direction. Then she got up and took the masset. "It is a strange land-bound drink, but I find it to my liking." "There's something I wanted to ask you." She smiled slyly. "It is too early in the evening for mating, and I am certain Lorelette has exhausted you. I saw her list before I went to bed this morning." I laughed. Like all Panakang, Mirasiri had skin as black as the night they lived in, with long, tawny black-brown hair that she wore wild and untamed. In addition to her wings, she had feet that were closer to hands, able to grip things and allow her to perch on narrow edges. And like most Panakang, but unlike my other wives, she disdained clothes, preferring to remain naked unless I asked her to put something on, which I'd largely given up on doing. "Not that. It's about Yama-Kana." She plopped herself in my lap. She was the smallest of my wives, weighing maybe 90 pounds, but she carried enough sass to make up for it. She wiggled her tight little butt against me. "There is little I can tell you, Will. I have never been there, but if it would help, I can make up stories to moan in your ear later while we mate." I laughed again. "All I wanted to know is if we can get there through the crystal circles." All the mirth left her eyes. She didn't answer me for a few moments. "You should not do this." "Does that mean the answer is yes?" Again she was silent. The crystal circles were a thing the Panakang had set up. Using the energies they controlled, it was possible to transport yourself from their home in the mountains to a hidden building in Fangarad. I'd done it myself when returning from the Panakang village, taking her and Eladra with me because we needed to get back quickly. So I'd wondered if we could handle this trip the same way. It would allow us to get in and out much more discreetly than the maglev. "Yes, there is a crystal circle in Yama-Kana," she said finally, "but it is not controlled by the Panakang." That got my attention. "Are there others maintaining these circles?" "Yes." "Who controls the one in Yama-Kana?" "I do not know, but the Panakang do not use it, and I do not know if we ever have. My mother would know, but I think her reaction would not be pleasant if I asked." "Then how do you know it's even there?" "Because you can see it, if you look. It has a different feel from our circles. Not knowing what we would arrive into, we do not use it. I assume whoever controls it feels the same about ours." She took my hand. "Will, please. It is an unnecessary risk. Take the train. You would be saving a day at most." This was something I had never suspected, and it intrigued me. I wanted to know more about it, but I decided to let it go, for now. "Okay, you win. The train it is." Chapter 2. Mirasiri disappeared into the night as she usually did. I had asked her and the Makalang who followed her to serve as my intelligence network in Fangarad, and they had done so very effectively. But as I fully expected when I claimed her that night up in the mountains, she followed her own whims and instincts in doing so, coming and going as she pleased. The Makalang her mother wished me to mate with were the same, slipping into my bed at night only to disappear before dawn. That had been our agreement, and my other wives had learned to sleep through it. But I needed to know more about the circle she mentioned. If she wasn't going to tell me, there was a way I could find out for myself. I found the big prismatic crystal I'd taken from the cave on the mountain where the Makalang lived. By experimenting with it, I had learned that I didn't need to hold it in my hands or even carry it to use it, though my abilities were sharpest when I did. As long as it was near me, within a few feet, I could still use it to focus myself. So I usually didn't carry it around because doing so gave me too clear a sense of everything going on around me. It was too much information on a day-to-day basis. But I needed it to use the crystal circles. Without Mirasiri, I needed another wife to help me, one who could see in the dark nearly as well as she could, and Naralora needed to stay safely in the house. Marindra was in the workout room, exercising in a tight top and leggings, swinging a pair of plastic practice swords around against the targets I set up for me and my wives to spar with. She stopped as I came in, walking up to me. "Well, I need you for something. We need to go somewhere tonight." Her face lit up. "Now?" "Yes. Get geared up." "Just the two of us?" I saw the eager look on her eyes. "Yes, Foxy girl. Just us." I didn't know what we were getting into, and given Mirasiri's reaction to the idea, I didn't want to take any chances. So I went to the office to get on my carbon fiber LARP armor and strapped on my katana, and then gathered the rest of the gear we would need. When I was suited up, Marindra arrived in her sarai armor, which was a similar, though lighter kind of composite, and her paired crystal swords. I briefly explained my conversation with Mirasiri and what I wanted to do. Her face paled a little, but she didn't waver. "Do you think this is wise, Will? If she warned against it?" "She just said she didn't know what was on the other end. All I want to do is check it out. I'm convinced there's something significant there, and the fact that there are others controlling the crystal circles tells me they might be able to help us. Or resist us, which is why we're not taking any chances here. We'll go, check it out, and come back." Marindra nodded. "Lead me, my Sulagoi. I will follow." I waited until it was fairly late, and we slipped out the back gate. Marindra and I walked for about half an hour before we reached the building with the crystal circle. The Makalang had destroyed much of the first floor to make it impossible for anyone to simply walk up and stumble across it. But knowing it was there, Marindra and I were able to cast a rope up around an old pillar and climb up. The circle was hidden in a room in the center of the second floor, away from any windows. Marindra could see just fine, but I needed my crystal flashlight to get my bearings. The ring of crystals was still there, unchanged from when I'd come back here with Mirasiri and Iladra. "Just stand with me. This likely won't feel like anything for you, if I'm even able to do it." Marindra followed me into the circle, standing next to me. Then I paused. "Listen," I said, "if I haven't asked you along on things like this until now, it's not because I don't believe in you or want you with me. I do. It's because the first fight Naralora followed me into almost killed her. And because of all the stuff that happened afterward, I don't want to go through any of that with you." She closed with me, kissing me gently. "I want you to love me for who I am, Will. All of me. Not just this face you love to stare at." "I do." "I'm Sarai. I'm a fighter, like Naralora. You cannot keep me in a box like something you are afraid of breaking." "Understood, babe. That's why you're here." She nodded, shooting me a brief smile. "Then let's go." She checked her swords and then loosened up her arms, stretching them to either side. "You have no idea where this goes?" she asked. "Yama-Kana. Beyond that? No." She smiled again. "Then I am eager to see what we find." I took out the crystal and focused myself. The process itself wasn't complicated. I could feel the circle around us, and in a moment In my mind's eye, I saw the circle in the mountains where the Panakang lived. I'd been there, and it felt familiar. That time I was following Mirasiri's instructions and only concentrated on getting us to Fangarad. Now, I just looked out, trying to see if there were other connections. Gradually, I began to sense something. More than one. There were others, unfamiliar ones. Something told me not to probe too deeply, but the realization was fascinating. Where did they all go? I saw the one in Yama-Kana. I couldn't see Yama-Kana, but somehow I sensed that was the destination. It was being used, frequently, and the texture of it suggested the destination just as the circles in the mountain and Fangarad did. But beyond that, it felt different in other ways. The circles in Fangarad and in the mountains had a certain flavor to them, which I realized a moment later was similar to Mirasiri's energy and that of the other Panakang. That made sense, since they'd created and maintained these two circles. The one in Yama-Kana had a different sort of flavor. The closest thing to it was Kisarat. A Talalong had created this circle. That sent a thrill through my gut. Could it have been the Talalong who approached Silas? But that had been 3 Kumala talons ago, and the circle felt newer somehow. I tried to see around it, but I realized immediately that this wasn't a method of seeing things far away. I could sense the circle and get a vague sense of where it was in relation to the ones I'd used, but nothing else. It was just there. So we would have to go and look. Okay. Get ready. I'm ready. I formed a bubble of energy around us and concentrated on the circle in Yama-Kana. A tunnel formed before me. After that, a mere thought was enough to pull us there. And we were in Yama-Kana. Marindra spoke up immediately, alarmed. Will? The room was dark, and there was an unpleasant smell around us, something foul and corrupt. We're here. Then I heard Marindra drawing her swords. She growled in a way I'd only ever heard her do when she was facing some kind of threat. Will, turn on your light. I had it clipped to my chest. When I turned it on, I saw we were in a large room, maybe 50 feet across and twice that long. The walls were mortared stone, and the ceiling 20 feet above us was held up with thick wooden beams. It looked like an old storeroom or warehouse of some sort, because there were boxes here and there around the room. The crystal circle around us was different in design from the one in Fangarad, and more like the one up in the mountains. Older, more detailed and deliberate. And I saw what had alarmed Marindra. We weren't alone. Around us, standing motionless, were 8 or 10 figures. A mix of Talalong, Lenyang, and Sarai, almost all of them young. But something was wrong. Very wrong. I saw it because I still held the crystal in my hand, which allowed me to see all the details of the energy in every living thing around me. I saw Marindra, pure and strong, and our baby inside her. But in the others around us, I saw the thing I'd done to Naralora when I was trying to heal her. When I'd filled her with foreign energies and nearly destroyed her own. I'd fixed her, but in the process of fixing her, I asked Fariwi, Mirasiri's mother and the old Panakang at the head of their clan, what would have happened if Naralora's energy had faded away and left the rest behind. The thing that is her would certainly have died, she told me. Whether her body would have died with her is another question. Most likely it would have, but it is possible those other energies could have sustained it as something that should not exist. These things around me should not have existed, but they did. I saw it. Every one of them was animated by energies foreign to their bodies, with nothing of the original left behind. I didn't want to call them mindless, for each one had some sort of consciousness, but it was a consciousness alien to their bodies. And as I began to appreciate what they were, I could see another layer to it, something controlling them. The moment or two it took me to absorb all this was the same moment or two it took them to become aware of our presence. And they moved to attack. I shoved the crystal back into my bag and drew my katana. But we were surrounded. "Break out! That way!" I charged toward the closest group with Marindra beside me. The nearest figure to me was a Linyang with a crystal shortsword, and I swung my katana down and across.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?